Hello, this is the Ref Show. A warm welcome from panel members Keith Hackett and Brian Deane, and from me, Alan Biggs. I think fair to say another weekend largely out of the headlines for Premier League referees. On the field, certainly. What about off it? Is enough being done to police the technical area? One big incident coming up. But first, a general question, Keith. An improvement?
I think a modicum of success for the PGMOL this weekend. Obviously led by the superb performance of Mark Clattenburg. I mean, we've been saying it for months here. Clattenburg is our number one. Get the number one guy out. If he's the centre forward or centre half in a team and performing well, you'd be in the team week in, week out. That's where Clattenburg should be. His pace, his movement on the field of play, how he manages players, they know what he wants and they respond to him.
He seems to be a banker bet.
Sounds like a centre forward.
yeah.
Pace and movement.
Yeah, and you were on the team sheet more often than not as an automatic choice as well, Brian.
Absolutely.
Two big derbies we've had. Yeah. So who would have thought that more attention would have been on Leicester City versus Crystal Palace? We'll talk in detail about obviously the Nigel Pearson incident. But first of all, let's go to Merseyside. Goalless between Everton and Liverpool. Anthony Taylor's selection, I think, raised a couple of eyebrows, but in actual fact, I can't see a blemish on his performance. Keith, can you?
Well, I think it was a tame Merseyside derby by previous sort of encounters. There didn't seem to be that bit of meat in it that we would normally expect from a derby. Having said that, I don't want to detract from the fact that I thought initially Anthony's performance was on that foundation of his movement and positioning. Yeah. So he was in good positions, good movement, making correct decisions. And when you make correct decisions, the players are aware of that and they respond accordingly. So that was the foundation. A really good game for Anthony.
Yeah, and Spurs-Arsenal was Jonathan Moss. And again, I looked at RefCam and Glenn Turner was manning that for youaretheref.com, and he summed up well refed. But there was just one gripe in that, wasn't there, I think, Keith?
Well, I think certainly they could have had a penalty.
This is probably, Arsenal.
Yeah, should have had a penalty. And I think that's what stems from that. But again, another sound performance, apart from that big decision. You've got to get those big decisions right.
Yeah. And Brian, in this game, there was a comment from Arsene Wenger, who, I don't know, is he trying to deflect from his own team's failings here? His quote is, "I wasn't happy with the referee. I felt like us. He wasn't at his best." Yeah. Is that just?
I think sometimes managers use the referee as a beating, a stick to beat the situation with and deflect. And Arsene's been at it a long time, hasn't he? So I think that sometimes you've got to just put the referee aside and just focus on your team.
Having said that, he's entitled to his opinion. I have seen one or two people suggesting that for that comment, Arsene Wenger should be in trouble with the FA. I can't honestly see why. He stated an opinion that he felt his team wasn't at its best. He didn't think the referee was either. Yeah. That's a fair comment, whether you agree with it or not, isn't it?
Well, again, I think personally, you have to be able to, within reason, comment on the referee situation without feeling as though you're going to be punished. It's part of the game.
Would you agree with that?
Oh,
Keith?
I mean, look, often the comment would be, I'm going to phone Keith Hackett immediately after the match when we've had an indifferent sort of incident in a game. Yeah, I think, we're in the entertainment business here. Yeah. And I think that everybody has a right to say what they want to say. And if it's proven to be wrong, or can be proven that the manager in his initial statements has got something wrong, you can deal with that behind the scenes.
But it's only if he questions integrity or suggests bias or whatever. Yeah. There's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think, from a manager's point of view, it's always a sense of frustration if you can't just say what you feel about the referee at the time, and it does build up, and I do think that is unfair sometimes.
Managers, I think, mistakenly are under the impression they can't say anything. When they can say, I didn't agree with that decision.
But they're always scared that that they're going to be held on a disrepute charge, for example.
Yeah, but why? Why should you be?
Because that normally happens.
It doesn't, I don't think. I think that they try to pin it down to when there's a suggestion that...
What you've got to remember is that after a game and a team have lost, you know, there's obviously a lot of pent-up frustration, a lot of emotion still going around in the manager's head. And if you stick a camera in front of him and you ask him certain questions, you're going to get a reaction.
Yes.
So I think you need to think about that. And I think that authorities, need to think about that and bear that in mind when they're looking to put managers on disrepute charges.
Fair point.
You know, Alan, I genuinely believe that managers are being suppressed. I think behind the scenes, there's some sort of agreement being penned that they won't make these adverse comments about refereeing. That might be the Premier League, who knows, funding the LMA and having an agreement out of that. But I see managers who, over the years, have made negative comments about referees, and suddenly there's this fear factor that, well, if I say something, I'm going to get fined.
Yeah.
Well, they've always had that over their head.
Yeah, it's part of the game, isn't it, really? We should move on from that. QPR 0, Southampton 1, fairly undramatic again. Roger East was in charge, but you've got to pick out one incident there, Keith. But there was a head injury, wasn't there, in that game?
I mean, in this particular game, the head injury, I thought, in fairness to Roger East, he reacted really well. Got someone on quickly, stopped the game, got him on quickly, and that is to his credit. But then that's what he has to do anyway. Yeah. That is part of the process, part of the learning curve that he goes through. And with head injuries in particular, whatever sport, you've really got to stop the game and take the player into consequence.
Let's move on to Chris Foy. He was in charge of Newcastle and Stoke. That was 1 apiece. The main talking point I saw here, and Mark Hughes, the Stoke manager, was certainly very unhappy. He felt that his team should have been up against 10 men because Jack Colback of Newcastle had already been cautioned, and then he goes in with quite a reckless challenge on Moses. What was your view?
Oh, I mean, there's no question. It was the second yellow. He should have gone. Again, we're back to this old question of... you know, I think that referees peak, and for me, I've said it before and I'll continue to say it, I think that when the guys get over the hill of 50, I think that they should be put out the grass. And I think it's as simple as that. I think there are 1 or 2 referees, Dowd was another, who didn't give a nailed-on penalty kick when he got a good view. And the reason he didn't was he wasn't in a good selling position. He was about 8-9 yards short of where he should have been to nail it. These are big decisions, and these guys have to give them.
Players have to know when it's time to go. You think the same applies to referees there, Brian?
I thought you were going to say put them down.
He's not quite
far off.
He's accused of being harsh.
They're both experienced referees. We've got a few in the Football League as well that are over the age of 50.
Yeah.
And the time comes when the legs don't carry the body. So my view is, you know, I wouldn't put them down. I would actually put them to good use. I think that Foy and Dowd are both excellent communicators, and they have a task to do. And I think the PGMOL need people like them behind the scenes, coaching young referees, encouraging young referees coming through.
More on that subject in Keith's latest blog on the website. Now to Leicester City and Crystal Palace. Incidentally, Palace won this 1-0. That's not what people are talking about. Lee Mason was in charge. Got to mention another official here, the 4th official, Peter Banks, because he looked a bemused bystander, and certainly those of us who watched this, millions who watched this incident on TV, we were quite bemused as well. Yeah. Nigel Pearson knocked into by James MacArthur of Palace, going for a ball on the touchline. Pearson's kind of looking the other way and he's shocked as he's kind of brought down accidentally, and suddenly they're rolling around on the floor. Pearson's got his hand on the player's neck and this pulling us. What's your view of it?
Can I say? I mean, I've been managing abroad for the last 2 years, and one thing about managing over there, the referees and the 4th official, they are so strict. And I saw David Moyes do an interview, and he said exactly the same. You know, the 4th official is like that with the managers. He's always patrolling and policing the 2 areas. And I've been to a couple of games over here since I've come back, and I've seen how casual, you know, the 4th official's role is. And it comes as no surprise to me then to see what happened at Leicester. actually take place. You know, I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Well, Nigel Pearson's a guy that you'll have played against, a highly respected player. I've known him for years, justifiably a very respected manager, and people trying to get into his head as to what was happening there. He claims it was a
I think if you look at the incident, I mean, I think. First of all, I think, you know, you have to look at Leicester's position, and obviously knowing Nigel a little bit, you know, he's a passionate guy, and he would have been totally consumed in the game. If you look at the incident, he didn't actually see.
No.
And if he'd have seen what everybody else could see, would have known that it was a complete accident.
Yes.
So you've just reacted because you've got so much tension. And I think as a result, you know, it's been a little bit of a standoff. And again, you know...
You don't think it was the bit of horseplay that Nigel said it was afterwards?
Possibly.
Or do you think it was more serious?
I think, you know what? I think it was one of those incidents where everybody probably regretted what had happened. Because
should we be talking about it, Keith? Or should we just be saying, OK, it's the heat of the moment, these sort of things happen? You know, should we make some big deal out of this? Or?
I think Brian makes a real observation about the role as fourth official and how the guy patrols his technical area. And there's no doubts in Europe they're stricter than here. We came to an arrangement some years ago that we wouldn't fight. Not every time the manager goes up, the coach goes to the edge of the area. We were following and then saying, sit down, sit down. And we decided, again, in discussion with the LMA, that we would adopt a slightly different approach, let them do the job, and then probably have a quiet word, say, look, it's a bit too much or whatever. The fourth official's got a massive job to do now. He's an additional referee, remember.
They seem passive figures, though, don't
they are passive, and on this occasion, too passive.
Yeah.
The fourth official could have avoided a lot of the problem if he'd have gone in early. You know, that is a shout that actually just brings the two guys to their senses. I felt sorry for the player. In fairness to the player who was held by Pearson, I thought he did really well. Because he could have really overreacted and swung a punch in an effort to break free, and he didn't. He probably was bemused by the fact that, just a minute, what's going off here?
But Alan Pardew, who's got previous in terms of touchline behaviour, he was quite startled. And you could see him asking, Pierce, what's all that about?
Well, I mean,
credit to him for that.
I mean,
he probably wanted to stick the nut on him.
The reality is that when a manager or a coach or anybody that's an occupant of the technical area behaves like that, it comes under the banner of irresponsible behaviour, and the referee and the fourth official are
So he should have been sent off.
Absolutely, should have been shipped to the stand. But as part of, you know, this damages the image of the game. If I open the newspaper today, there's pictures and pictures of this particular incident, not the game.
But you're suggesting the fourth official, had he been more proactive, he could have actually avoided a situation where he had to consider.
You know what's going to happen now. Obviously, from now on, I feel now they will have to play a more active role just because of incidents like this. So it was going to happen at some stage. I'll be surprised if you see another incident like that.
Right, OK. Well, I'll be surprised if we don't, but I don't, I don't know. Keith's suggesting that the fourth officials need to be told to be a little bit more involved. There just seems to be punch bags, really, for the verbal excesses of managers and coaches.
Well, look, at the end of the day, we're there to apply the laws, and I don't think we're there to ensure that the FA take action afterwards. We need to do it on the day.
On the day.
And therefore, that's what should have happened on the day. Pearson should have sent to the stands for irresponsible behaviour, and then the matter would have been dealt with by the FA. Okay. Now it's gone on a bit, and the punishment might even get higher, or they may be left in a situation where no action is taken by the FA at all.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up on a cheerful note. You've already mentioned Mark Clattenburg's excellent performance in the draw between West Ham and Manchester United. Equally predictably, Mike Deane, Burnley 2, West Brom 2, another impressive performance yet again from Deane. You mentioned Phil Dowd, Swansea and Sunderland. Alvarez was tripped and Sunderland should have had a penalty.
Yeah.
But Chelsea, and they're always going to be a high-profile appointment. They won 2-1 at Aston Villa. Neil Swarbrick was appointed. Did a good job, I think.
Yeah, I think he got through it. I mean, when you actually look at the appointments for the next round of the Premier League, it's easy for Mike Riley to suddenly sit down and go, Clattenburg, Deane, Atkinson, who's performing much better. You've then got young Anthony Taylor, give him another game. Give Swarbrick another game. I've got you 5 out of 10 that are halfway there to having another good weekend.
Yeah, we've got half a team out, and actually the team is beginning to look a little bit more of a cohesive unit than it was, which I know that you're pleased to see.
Well, I am very pleased because I think that what's happening is, rather than being fairly lethargic on the field of play, some of these guys are now beginning to move and get into the right positions.
Okay, Keith, thanks ever so much. And to you, Brian. See both of you gents again. See you again. Any comments, queries or whatever for us, youaretheref.com. Email us or contact us on Twitter @youaretheref. See you again next week. Bye.